What is going on? What is going on? What's up, Mizium? What's up, Dreamweaver? Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Everything's nice and clear. My settings on my mic got reset, so noise gate and my EQ in general is a little messed up. Tried to fix it last night, and I'm not sure it got put back to normal. So if you guys hear, okay, looks like yet again it did not save anything. So you guys will be able to hear me, but you guys might at least let me mess with my noise gate a little bit, because I at least remember the settings for this. I just don't want you guys to be hearing my keyboard clacking every time. But we should be a-okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm just not going to be nice and crisp like I normally try to sound, but at least you guys won't hear my keyboard. So yeah, hello, welcome. It's been a bit. I haven't done a stream in a while. I think the last one was a Luchador homebrew stream. Little small update regarding that. It is pretty much almost done. I'm doing one more like balance pass over some fixes and changes to the subclasses, 2 of the subclasses, and then after that it's going into layout, and then it's up on DM's Guild. That's pretty much the progression. I'm hoping to get it out this month. If not, it'll be at the beginning of next year. Yeah, so I'm super excited with that. And yeah, so finally, Wizards has dropped another UA. This time, it's a little bit smaller, and it's only showcasing the cleric class and then also the updates to some of the races from the first playtest packet. So, I've been pretty much in the dark. I haven't really dived deep into it. I've actually also even haven't tried to watch and look at some of the other content creators, because I wanted to kind of go into this one a little bit blind. I'm aware of some of the discussion and stuff that's happened in my Discord and in other content creator Discord, but I wanted to really have a clean look at this and not have my own first-hand opinion and be like a little bit influenced. So yeah. So I think the good thing is just kind of just dive into it. So yeah, we only got the cleric this time. It looks like the next UA we're going to get is going to be like a huge, at least a big boy. They said it's going to be a really big one, which most likely will include the rest of the classes and the priest, which will probably be the druid and the paladin. And then potentially also the warrior group. But who knows? Pretty much we're going to get the rest of the priest, and then following that we'll get the warrior group, and then we'll get the mage group at the end. So it's going to be interesting to see how these play out. So I'm aware of the changes to the subclass progression. There is some changes to that. So it's going to be interesting. I know some of the other content creators you guys probably follow are not too keen on it. At this point, I'm very indifferent. I don't have I'm not either for or against it. And there's a poll going on right now on the community page that some people have very strong opinions, and a majority of the people that have voted so far, out of like close to 300 people, have said they hate it. So, but when we dive into the progression, I'll explain why I think they're doing this and why I'm very indifferent about it. So, cleric is part of the priest. The primary ability is wisdom. And then let's look at this progression right here. So, right over here, we're getting channel divinity up front. We're getting spellcasting, holy order. I've seen people talk about holy order. I actually have no clue what they're talking about. So that's one of the features I'm looking most forward to looking at right now. Then we got cleric subclass coming in at 3rd. Feat, smite. It's another subclass feature. Blessed strikes, feat. Holy order, subclass feature. Divine intervention, feat, and so on. And we keep going. Epic boon right at the end. So let's just dive. Also, at any point, if you guys cannot hear me, just let me know in the chat. That means the noise gate is working. I'm trying to talk louder into the mic so that it does pick up the noise, but sometimes I can get a little low. So All right, so nothing changed in regards to hit dice. You still get a D8, Constitution modifier, etc. This is still the same. Armor training proficiency, light armor, medium armor, and shields. Starting equipment is either the base stuff, a chain shirt, a holy symbol, a mace, a shield. Okay. Okay, first feature. Let's just channel divinity. So up front, let me pull up a second window because before I throw it on the screen, so we can kind of cross-reference on D&D Beyond a little bit too with the original cleric. We can kind of bounce back and forth, at least the table, so we can see really quick. So let me throw it down here. Okay, so you guys can see it. So we get channel divinity at level 2 currently. Now we're getting it at level 1. So now, with channel divinity, you gain the ability to channel divine energy directly from the outer planes, using that energy to fuel magic effects. You start with 2 such effects, Divine Spark and Turn Undead, each which is described below. Each time you use your channel divinity, you choose which effect you create and gain additional effects options at higher levels in this class. And big change is now it is proficiency bonus per long rest amount of uses. Well, originally, the channel divinity is once per long rest, and it eventually becomes 2, and eventually becomes 3. So that's a big change. This is something we're seeing throughout all the newer designs, and pretty much since Tasha's subclasses, we saw a shift in features being proficiency bonus per long rest. So it's a bit of a meme in some of the circles. A lot of people don't hate it. It is an issue with balance for the game because it is very easy for multi-classing to get a very, very powerful option and it scale with you along as you go along. So there is the balance issue that narratively it kind of makes sense. You're training as you go, and then despite not training more into the class, you're still focusing and using these abilities. So it's give and take. Like it makes sense narratively. I at least for me, it makes a lot of sense narratively if I'm like a level 1 or 2 cleric, but then I'm like fighter the rest of the way. I'm still practicing my faith. I'm just not developing, diving deeper into my faith. I'm just still practicing the set of skills I know repeatedly. So yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. With the rest of the priests, what mechanic is going to be the thing that spread throughout all of them? And the common link between the cleric and the paladin was channel divinity. So I'm wondering they're going to remove wild shape and just call it channel divinity, right? And that is where the wild shape ability is gonna take place. So instead of turn undead, they get wild shape, you know? So that's what I'm thinking potentially that's what they're gonna do. They just rename it channel divinity, and when instead of turn undead, it is wild shape as their base option and then another option. So let us see what Divine Spark is, because that is I want to say that is new. Yeah, that is new because normally the base option for channel divinity currently right now is turn undead at level 2, and then you get an additional option based off your subclass. So now we get Divine Spark as a magic action, which is a new kind of action, which I will look into in a second. Or I'll look into later as soon as we get down to the lower part of the document to see what magic action actually fully entails. I'm assuming it has to do with spells and potentially magic items. My first guess, but magic action, I'm assuming that is the action to use to cast spells. You point your holy symbol at another creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself and focus divine energy at them. Roll a number of d8s equal to your proficiency bonus and add the rolls together. You either restore hit points to the creature equal to the total or force that creature to make a constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes a d8 radiant damage equal to the total, and on a successful save, the creature takes half as much damage rounded down. All right, so they're giving you an option, a base option now, to use in campaigns that don't feature a lot of undead, which is cool because sometimes turn undead, depending on the campaign you're playing, might be a dead feature. Your channel divinity isn't always active unless you're heavily relying on the channel divinity of your subclass currently. And even then, there might be, in some occasions, rare occasions, if you're playing a certain character. Let me turn off that. That maybe your channel divinity for your turn undead and your subclass might not be something you're using consistently. Now it seems this is what they kind of want you to do, be a little bit more reliable. So I like that change. I like that there is a consistent option, but I'm wondering now if there isn't going to be channel divinities per subclass. So that's, I don't know. Once I know the life cleric is the one included into this, and I'm assuming with the new scaling and change of subclasses that channel divinity did get lost for subclasses. All right, and for turn undead, use a magic action. You present your holy symbol and speak prayer censuring undead creatures. Each undead within 30 feet of you must make a wisdom saving throw. If the creature fails its saving throw, it is dazed for 1 minute or until any damage or you are incapacitated or die. While dazed in this way, the only action the creature can take is the dash action, and if it moves, it must end that move farther from you than where it started. All right. So we get a new action called dazed, or a new condition called dazed. All right, I want to look up what dazed is. Dazed condition. While dazed, they experience the following effect. Limited activity. You can move or take one action on your turn. You cannot do both. You also can't take a bonus action or reaction. Oh, interesting. All right, so not only are they dazed, but they only allowed to take the dash action. So they're even more limited than this. Dang. That's cool. It is very, very different. Let's see, with the current channel divinity, as it actually present your holy symbol. Each creature you can see within 30 feet, you must make a wisdom saving throw. The creature fails the saving throw, it is turned for 1 minute. The turn creature must spend its turn moving away as far as it can and can't willingly move to a space within 30 feet of you. Can't take reactions. For its action, it can only use a dash. Okay, so it can't take the dodge action anymore. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was back in 4E. So somebody in the chat knows. Go ahead and educate me. I'm a 5E baby. But yeah, so it removes the dodge action. They can no longer dodge. They can only use the dash action, or they can't do anything. That's it's a buff. Turn undead is a buff, which is cool. Not really gonna complain about that. Like the solid, it's a lot more straightforward now that there is a condition, a dazed condition. I'm all for adding more conditions into the game. Honestly, it's just a lot more coded words to kind of quick hand abilities, which is what I'm always here for. But also, I come from playing a lot of Magic the Gathering prior to playing D&D 5th edition. So for me, it's easy. It's like, okay, coded keyword, boom, that means this set of rules, and this is how that interacts with this sort of thing. So seeing that they are kind of gamifying more things, I'm very much happy about. I know it does gamifying in certain things does cause a barrier to entry for newer players, but so far my overall opinion of the stuff that they're introducing into One DND and how they're restructuring the game a bit is actually centered around newer and more casual players. The only ones that were really diving deep into this are going to be people like us who are very invested into the game, who want the game to play a certain way. So it's one of those things I notice with at least influencers and other content creators, we are really talking about it from our point of view. But I always like to try to remind people, but the larger player base is very much more casual and newer. So it needs to be a lot more broader. And I know that frustrates people, especially people that have been playing D&D since forever. So yeah, so just keep that in mind. Yeah, the feature may be bland or maybe not be as chunky and gritty, and it has a lot of stuff to fine tune, but there's a reason for that, and there's a reason for why fifth edition is so successful and so accessible to a lot of people that normally wouldn't play D&D in the begin with. I know I was scared off of playing D&D in 3.5 because it just was a lot of stuff going on, and even in fourth edition, I think I played like 2 one-shots once, and it just felt like there was a lot going on. I didn't really know what to do. And then when we played fifth edition, I was like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense. It's a lot more natural. But still, as always, there's always a barrier to entry because you can't really learn to play the game by reading the book. I learned by playing the game and having my DM teach us how to play. So I think they're trying to remove some of that too. So, okay, we also get spellcasting. That is no big deal. We know this. I'm liking that they're having a suggested loadout. This is very new user, casual player friendly. Like, hey, just take these spells, and then alternatively, boom, for people like us, bam, we have the freedom to choose. You can pray or meditate and replace any spell you prepared for this class with another divine spell per long rest. So that is cool. Let's see, spell slots are still the same. You can use your holy symbol as a spell focus. Cool. Bee's knees. All right, holy order. Let's see what the hell this is. This is the feature everybody's like, yeah, this is cool. I have no idea what it is. So holy order, you have dedicated yourself to one of the following sacred roles. Either are you on your own or as a part of a religious order. Excuse me. Choose one of the following options. Protector. Train for battle. You gain martial weapon proficiency and heavy armor training. Ooh. Scholar. Studying and teaching about the lore of the gods and the multiverse. You gain proficiency in 2 of the following skills of your choice. Arcana, history, nature, persuasion, and religion. Whenever you make an ability check using either skill, you gain a bonus to the check equal to your wisdom modifier. Thaumaturge. Delving deeper into your divine magical abilities, you can prepare 1 extra 0-level spell from the divine spell list. See your spellcasting feature for more information on preparing spells. Ooh, yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Remember, this is a fighting styles for clerics. This is sick. I actually really like this. I like having way more options of choice because there are certain character concepts that you want to play a warrior priest, but with a subclass option that is not there. Or the subclass option doesn't cater to that playstyle. Which is awesome. So now this changes it. So like, especially let's take, for example, a Tempest Cleric. Tempest Cleric currently is very geared towards this close range to mid range fighting style, where you can be pretty much be Thor. You can go in there, smack people, or you can sit in the midline and shoot thunder at people. But now this gives you the option to be like, no, I want to go full in and just melee and be a little bit of a tank. Or if you want to and be more Thor, or if you want to be more like Storm, you can go Thaumaturgy and just take more spells. Or if you want to play some sort of knowledge-based information collector cleric, you have that here, which is sick. Like, and that's it provides more avenues of play and then more room for players to be creative. Meaning, and I'm hoping my assumption is based on subclasses, that the features for the subclass are not going to be geared towards these kind of roles. They're just more going to be geared towards providing features that are influenced with a lot of flavor. So yeah, so which is good. So if I'm going to be yeah, like a sun cleric or something like that, right? A light cleric. Well, my sun god that I'm following is more of a warrior based sun god. Boom, I'll take protector. My sun god is more about enlightenment. Well, I'm going to be a scholar instead. Or my sun god is more about, actual fire and burning things. Boom, boom, thaumaturge. Yeah, I haven't. What's going on, Steven? I haven't actually looked at the subclass yet. I'm gonna go into it. So that's what I'm hoping. Based off of this, they're taking some of those aspects out of it, so that you have more customizability in how you want to approach and play your class. And on top of this Holy Order gives you a bigger investment to stick with the class instead of multi-classing, at least out of cleric, to pick up certain proficiencies, right? So say you wanted to play a more warrior priest for a cleric subclass that didn't have those features, you probably take a level dip into fighter or something to give you those extra proficiencies, or you take certain feats to do it right. This kind of eliminates that. You get to kind of, from at least second level, you get that from the get-go, which I like. You you don't have to multi-class to get certain things. And also, scholars probably I'm assuming people might be sleeping on it, and they shouldn't. Part of the issue with I notice with cleric, in terms of the way certain things are built, religion, right, is a intelligence-based skill. They're fixing that, and it makes a lot more sense that the wisdom-based character would know how to use religion and not have to invest so much into intelligence. They could just use their wisdom modifier. It makes a lot more sense that you can do that. While in the base rules, currently with 5th edition, you can always, up to DM discretion, allow a player to use a different modifier for their features. Unfortunately, the way we discuss D&D online doesn't reinforce that bit of I guess DM fiat, allowing for that. A lot of discussion in terms of how we build characters and talk about characters and how DMs are supposed to arbitrate rules. Unfortunately, they stick to religion is an intelligence-based skill. In reality, there is a bit of leeway to actually change it. So this kind of just helps not have to deal with that anymore. So yeah, this is sick. I really like this. And in all honesty, I like playing the two I probably will pick the most when I play cleric. I'm gonna be honest, is probably protector if I want to play more of a tank, kind of stuff like melee spellcaster, or scholar. Thaumaturgy isn't bad. It's just for me personally, I would probably pick either of those two because I like using a lot of skills and like being the person that uncovers a lot of information for the party. That's the kind of characters I tend to either play. Either I'm dumb tank and go into the fight and hit stuff, or I'm the guy that's trying to find out as much information as possible. But I know like a couple other my buddies in my play group, they're going to probably take Thaumaturge a lot because they like spells. So yeah, A+. I really like Holy Order. I would not mind if they continue to add onto it like they do with fighting styles. But I think they need to do certain different avenues of play. I would not mind seeing them add a roguish option to be sort of like a divine assassin. That'd be pretty sick. I know. Who is it? Where's Daryl at? Drunken Yoda. He has a class up on the DM's Guild called the Scion that plays with that idea and that whole character concept, that character fantasy. This divine assassin, you're an assassin for the church, and I wouldn't mind seeing at least a Holy Order that alludes to that too. It's like you have these sort of like more tricky skill, like trickster skills. So yeah, A+. I really like Holy Order. That is awesome. All right, 3rd level subclasses. Whew. Okay, so we get Life Domain. This is the only one they're going to have in here. I'm expecting Life Domain to be very simple because it's going to be the quote-unquote iconic cleric, right? And that's what we've seen with the expertise classes also, or the expert classes. You have the Thief Rogue, the Hunter Ranger, and the Lore Bard. They're very simple. They're very straightforward. They're the bardiest bard, the most ranger, the most roguey rogue. I'm assuming this is going to be the most cleric. The wording on Scholar needs a little fixing, but I do like it. Yeah, let me see. You gain proficiency in the following skills of your choice. So you pick 2 whenever you make an ability check using either skill. Okay, yeah, I can see that too, because my assumption it's based on the skills you chose, but also you can read into this and say any of these skills. It'd be pretty sick if it meant all these skills. So even if you weren't like proficient in them, you're just still pretty good. And that'd be sick. Okay. We'll jump into Life Cleric when it pops up. Okay, level 4 feat. Not mad at that. I'm super sold on feats. All the player option changes that they introduced, like feat options, and the background changes, and even the changes to species, aka formerly known as race. I'm all for them because I'm not tied to the tradition of 5th edition coming in, or the tradition of D&D, excuse me. I came in at 5th edition where there was already a lot of changes towards the game, even though that, from my understanding, 5th edition did do a lot of callback to nostalgia for the game. But with all the changes that I've seen, and especially trying to address a lot of social issues that were coming up regarding the game and trying to push this game forward, I'm always going to be for options that allow players to express and alter and change their character to fit the fantasy that they envision. So the changes to background, while are progressive, I will say the progressive, that people might not like them, but that you're moving culture out of species and putting culture and identity into backgrounds. Your life experiences are now in your background. That is awesome. I really enjoy that. And the same thing for feats, allowing you to choose and fine tune to get that inherent fantasy that you're wanting. It gives you more incentive to stay a single class and then kind of fine tune that. I know that there isn't always going to be the case because there's certain fantasies that are not going to be fulfilled in the game. And that's just the nature of any sort of system. And that's why homebrew exists, to allow that. And the subclass system is only one avenue to help that. But then some fantasies just aren't there for the class chassis, just don't support that level of fantasy. So that's why I would suggest go to homebrew. It's perfectly fine, or reflavor. But man, yeah, like the feats system now no longer being an optional thing, even though it was never optional. And then backgrounds changing, and then the species changes. Like this is the game's. I'm looking forward to One DND and what it's gonna do. You have to go taking religion at level 1 if you want the bonus to religion at level 2. It's fiddly. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, okay. That makes a lot more sense too. And they also, yeah, I would say that, and the clarity on what they mean by whenever you make an ability check using either skill. I think the either skill implies the 2 skills you chose, but they can also just be more clear if or if that doesn't imply that the 2 chosen skills, and that just says any of these skills you use. So what's going on, Robert? So yeah, but yeah, good pointing that out, that you have to not take it at level 1. Okay, 3rd level. Okay, 5th level, we got Smite Undead. You can cause your Turn Undead feature to smite the Undying. Whenever you use your Turn Undead, you can roll a number of d8s equal to your proficiency bonus and add the rolls together. Each Undead that fails its saving throw against the use of its Turn Undead takes radiant damage equal to the rolls total. Interesting. So it's like it's a smite, but only targeting undead. Okay. Very, very specific. I'm not sure I like it that it is this specific, but making it apply to anything that is not undead also makes it too much like Paladin Smite. I like how you don't have to do the CR thing anymore, and it's more usable when you're fighting higher level undead. That is true. So that's another big change to Smite to turn undead. There's no CR attached to it, which is cool. The player no longer has to worry about scaling, and I think that's the big thing. There's no more referencing. Well, what CR is this? I don't think I could turn this. There's less ambiguity. It's like, this is an undead. I have this feature. I'm gonna try to turn it. A lot more straightforward, and it makes sense narratively. Too. It's like, I'm the holy warrior, and there's a vampire in front of me. I'm going to try to turn it. Well, that vampire is Strahd. You're not gonna turn him. But like, it's like that fantasy. Like, I'm gonna try it with all my might to try to prevent this undead creature from attacking us, regardless. Yeah. Yeah, Smite Undead, I think it's very this is the only one I'm like, okay, this is very campaign dependent for a class feature. I don't mind it, but you're only going to really be using it if you're playing an undead heavy campaign. But what else are we getting at 5th level? That's the thing. What else are we getting at 5th level? I'm assuming, 3rd level spells. So, giving you more of a niche feature, but it's because you're getting 3rd level spells. So, that's your big power bump. Anyway, so that is why. All right. Okay, another subclass feature at 6. 7th level, Blessed Strikes. Divine power infuses you in battle when a creature takes damage from one of your 0 level spells or your attacks with your weapons. You can also deal 1d8 radiant damage to that creature. Once you deal this damage, you can't use this feature again until the start of your next turn. Okay, so they took Blessed Strikes, and I think you get it a level earlier, right? Let's go to the table. All right, normally you would get Divine Domain feature. Let's look at Arcana. Yeah, you get potent spellcasting, or I know Forge has it, or Divine Strike. So this just takes both of those, put them into one, and it takes it out of the subclass and just puts it in the base class. Not mad. Straightforward. I like it. Allows them to do more with the subclasses instead of just like having to write a feature that just is like, okay, but that informs your playstyle. Now you have a bit of a freedom of playstyle. I assume that the domains that target other creature types will get features that improve Smite Undead. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping too. That there is, maybe that's the 6th. I'll look at Light Domain in a second, but maybe the 6th level. I'm assuming the 6th level feature might be doing that. That's my guess. Hopefully, but if not, then so what it is. Okay, 8th level feat. What I'm going to be interested in seeing, like, okay, everybody kind of has that standard progression so far of feats. I think I might already be answering myself, but I think Rogue does get access to more feats than the other expert classes still. And I think the same thing is going to be for the fighter. Holy Order, your sacred duties have expanded, allowing you to choose a second option for the Holy Order feature. That's cool. Not mad at that. That is pretty cool. I like that. I just hope they expand more Holy Orders. That'd be a cool way to really get that. I really enjoy that one. Subclass feature at 10. Divine Intervention. You can call on your deity or pantheon to intervene on your behalf when your need is great. As an action, describe the assistance you seek and roll a percentile die. If you roll a number equal to or lower than your cleric level, the divine power intervenes. The DM chooses the nature of the intervention. The effect of any divine spell is appropriate. If the intervention occurs, you can't use this feature again for 2d6 days. Otherwise, you can use it again after you finish a long rest. Let's see, it compares. Divine Intervention. So we get it a level later. You roll a percentile die. Equal to or lower than your cleric levels. That stays the same. Okay, so potentially longer wait or shorter wait to use the feature again, but no longer has the clause that at level 20 you automatically succeed. So that's you can there's a potential to get this back a lot sooner or a lot later. And there's a clarity on like what the DM can do. Also, the kind of pointing at a divine spell might be more appropriate to kind of speed things along, which is cool, but still giving them the freedom to choose what the nature of the intervention. An extra holy orders is appointing at 9th level. None of those options are as exciting. Yeah, at 9th level. That's why I'm hoping that they expand on it more. But what else are they getting at 9th? Right, 9th level. Level 5 spells, 5th level spells. Okay, that wouldn't be a bad idea either. Now that you point that out, yeah, that's not a bad idea. That they just there's upgrades to the holy orders. I can see that. I think it's that brings up a good point because the others are not going to expand your playstyle too much. I think the only one that might help out more, obviously, or for me, it's obvious if you don't already have it, is going to be the Scholar. If you took Thaumaturge or Protector. And potentially if you took Scholar or first, the only one I really see doing more is Protector, unless you really want that extra cantrip. And even then at this later level, at the later level, Thaumaturge is the one that I feel feels weaker. And even then, say you're taking Protector later, unless you're rebuilding with Strength in mind to actually access to heavier, pretty much heavy armor, I don't think it's worth it. Because normally, if you're not investing in heavy armor at the beginning and being a strength build, you're going Dex. And so far from what I've seen from the game, they're not changing the idea or the fact that Dex is still the power stat in the game, that it still governs your initiative. I really would have liked that they changed that. That Dex wasn't as powerful or as the god stat as it is, since it does govern your AC and your initiative. If they would have kind of coupled it, at least take initiative out of it and allow players to interact with initiative differently. I think that's what Pathfinder 2 does really well, is that initiative isn't based off of Dex. From my understanding, is like you can apply different skills to determine your initiative bonus. That does go against 5e 1 D&D design, where it's a lot more straightforward. But that'd be something interesting to see, that they implement a straightforward system that helps players have differing initiatives, stats at least for that. Same for multiple fighting styles in the current edition. I could see that. I think with like champion fighter in comparison, I think the fighting styles, if you're also including all the ones introduced in Tasha's, do offer more variety and buffs compared to just the player's handbook ones. Like if you don't have the defense fighting style and you took something else instead, getting the +1 to your AC is still really good, regardless of like what level you are. Getting just that extra bonus to your AC is just solid. But then like some of the other options are still solid too when you get them. But they're not, I agree with you, they're not that wow. They're not like, they don't feel super impactful. Unified subclass progression is just like WTF. This is a 4E move. Well, when we get into Life Cleric, I'm gonna give my thoughts on it. I'm very indifferent about it. But yeah, I'll dive into more right now when we get into that. Yeah, but we haven't seen what they're gonna do with Champion Fighter, right? Which is gonna be the base fighter subclass. Like, I'm super interested in what they're gonna do with the warrior group, because Monk was the one that needed the most overhaul. So I'm interested in seeing what they're gonna do, because despite the bashing of Monk is like one of those classes that was like near dear to my heart. The Monk was probably one of the funnest classes I played. Barbarian, Monk, and Rogue are probably the most fun I've had playing D&D. Those three classes, I've had characters and they just were really, really fun to play. Fighter, on the other hand, are fun to build. And despite them being very, very simple class, they're very fun to build and talk about, because they do present a variety of options because of the access to feats. So now with the changes to feats, there's going to be even more fine tuning and different things like that. So that's why I want to see what they're going to do with Champion Fighter to make it how they simplify it, but also what they do to kind of change it, and what they include as baseline like fighting styles for Fighter. We've already kind of hint at the fighting styles with the Ranger, but we'll see. Feat, subclass feature, feat, greater divine intervention. When you use your divine intervention feature, it succeeds automatically. No roll required. Okay, there it is. And they get that at 18th level. There it is. You no longer need to roll, starting at 18th level. What do we normally get around 18th at Cleric? Channel Divinity, ability score improvement, divine intervention improvement. Okay, that's why. So they're moving this, the 20th, over to 18th level. So you get boons and feats later. All right, so overall, the upfront change, the majority of the changes to Cleric are going to be super upfront, and the loadout to the subclasses. The only room for concern, obviously, I think with the class up front is going to be Channel Divinity, because it is now a proficiency bonus per long rest amount of uses. And that does cause some balance concerns with multiclassing, right? But now no longer having to wait, no longer needing to take a level dip for your subclass to get certain proficiencies or certain access to certain powerful abilities. This is different now too, because that's going to be shoved to third. You kind of have to wait, and people are saying, "Well, it's still just third level," but you gotta remember there is a when it comes to multiclassing, there is a time investment when it comes to this. A level 1, level 2 dip isn't as much of a time investment to do it. A level 1 investment into a class isn't that bad, and 2 is still there. As soon as you start getting 3 and more, you start to push it, because most games stop around level 10. If you're starting at level 1 and say you're going 3 cleric to something else, that's half your campaign right there, if you think about it. That's 5 levels in, you're half your campaign, and you might, depending on how your spread is, you might still not even actualize the kind of character you're wanting to play at that point. So that's things to consider, because that's what a lot of like multiclassing does come into play, because people wanted, especially for cleric, was because that level 1 subclass feature, and also other proficiency bonuses or proficiencies you would get with armor and etc. So with that said, that's my big concern with just Channel Divinity, is that it is going to rely on proficiency bonus per long rest. And that's going to be with all of those. Like, how powerful are these features going to be for every class that relies on this, because they are going to continue to scale, and if they're going to be worth the investment for the level dip or level 1 or 2 level dip into this. I think there is argument to be made to switch Holy Order and Channel Divinity around. Holy Order is interesting. I wouldn't mind seeing this at first level, though, because you're really, to feel like a heavily armored war cleric, you need to wait till second level. Well, it's not going to take that long, right? But because level 1 to level 2 level progression is like one adventure, and 1 to 2 adventures are pretty much there. But still, you're building your character from the ground up. You have to wait a level to be able to wear heavy armor and use martial weapons. I wouldn't mind seeing them just switched around. Okay, Thaumaturge. Robert came in. Said asking if regaining channel divinity use whenever you finish a short rest very powerful. It can be, but mind you, channel divinities are changed now, so you get to turn undead, or you get to add you get to restore some hit points equal to the total, or force a creature to make a Constitution saving throw. Or they take damage, right? Yeah, then the Thaumaturge does nothing at first. See, yeah, so yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, conceptually, I would like to have Holy Order be first with some changes to Thaumaturge and stuff like that, and then Channel Divinity at second. But in terms of power and potential level dip stuff, Channel Divinity being up front is probably safer. And part of it too, Channel Divinity's thing, it makes you feel like a cleric. But I'm gonna be honest, because if you really look at what it's trying to do, the fantasy it's trying to sell you, it's a lot up front. But instead of getting a subclass feature up front that makes you like the tries to give you the identity of the domain up front, you're becoming a cleric up front. You can either hurt people or heal people with divine energy, right? You get baby smite, like not smite, but like a flexible healing hands, hurting hands sort of deal right here. And also allows you to heal without using spell slots, which is cool. And then you get turned undead, right? This does sell the fantasy of the cleric, the holy warrior, the right up front, and plus spellcasting, right? And then so if people are going to level dip into cleric, you probably, unless you really want holy orders, you're only level dipping just to get channel divinity. And spells, excuse me, and first level spells. So, but again, you're doing this at the sacrifice of your other level progression. The way that I'm seeing it and noticing that they're doing this, the changes to classes all having a unified subclass progression is not necessarily geared towards. It's not geared towards narrative design. This is entirely there to address gameplay, design, and balance, and the complaints that players in the community, DMs, etc., have in regards to classes that have a lot of front-loaded features at level 1. And while this may frustrate people because they could just be like, well, why don't you just update the offending classes, right? Why don't you just update Hexblade Warlock and nerf it and give it so that people just don't want to take it as a level 1 dip and make charisma based melee builds. Well, if there's multiple classes throughout the game that are doing this, that have these features that you do take a level 1 dip to get certain things, you're probably better off changing how we address and look at subclasses. At the same time, the changes in subclasses also change how we're going to approach playing the game a bit. So currently with 5th edition, classes that get their subclasses at 3rd level, their playstyle is informed by their class, while the subclass informs the flavor and how they interact with that playstyle. And classes that tend to get their subclasses at 1st and 2nd level, their playstyle is indicated by the subclass, and their core class kind of supports that. Well, what does this mean now that all classes have a core playstyle and the subclasses will inform how we interact with that playstyle? There's the potential to now introduce new classes that will have a actual niche. When you have too many classes that allow their niche to be, their supposed class niche to be very, very broad, it's hard to introduce classes into the game that play that same niche if you can do it better and still get the whole bonuses of being a full class from another class. So that's one of the things too. I see the potential for them to be like, okay, everybody gets a class at 3rd. The core classes indicates the playstyle. This is why you see Bard being changed to more of a support healer, right? And that does frustrate people because the narrative behind Bard is like you're some sort of entertainer, magical entertainer that wields that power through illusionary effects, supportive abilities, and etc. But depending on how you do it. But now they're really distinctly saying that, yeah, your bardic inspiration is not only a support feature, but a healing feature. You see, and you're saying this with cleric now too, right? You're seeing divine spark, heal, but then they're still calling back to classic D&D, allowing you to deal damage with radiant energy, and then you turn undead. You're going to be more of this, pretty much not so much of a heal bot, but have the option to be able to heal on demand. When you can, especially if you're out of spell slots, which is going to be way more consistent and reliable than just trying to force con saving throws and deal damage. The other thing they're saying they're addressing is too many options in the first 2 levels. I can see that too. The first 2 levels. The first level, especially when they're saying this, so there's too many options. That argument also kind of gets counteracted by what they're doing with backgrounds and race. It doesn't necessarily support it, but I can see how players coming into the game may feel overwhelmed by the first level option for certain classes and attempting to learn a lot of different things about that class and to be confused by it compared to backgrounds and picking your race. Now with the background changes, it's like, okay, you do have to pick a feat, right? But there's only X amount of feats you can be able to pick. And that's easier to comprehend if everybody at your table is doing it, right? If everybody's sitting down is like, okay, well, here's all we're trying to build these backgrounds. There's a lot of options, but if everybody's doing the same thing at the table, it's very easy to be like, oh, you're playing this cleric. Well, hey, I saw this feat here and these skills. Maybe you should take that. Oh, you're playing a fighter. Oh, you should check out these skills and these feats. If everybody's doing it at the table, there's that and building together. You can kind of address that, right? But then if everybody's playing different classes, and currently with 5th edition, well, I'm a fighter. I only get these 2 features and I'm good to go. Well, I'm a cleric and I have to pick all my spells, and then I also have to pick my subclass, and then you know what I mean? And then still try to figure out what does the cleric actually do. And each subclass for the cleric currently changes how the cleric plays. So not only do they have to learn what spells are good to support that kind of play style, they have to figure out what play style they want to play. based off the subclass they're choosing. You don't really get, I guess they're trying to address right now. 5th edition is like, what kind of cleric are you, instead of you, how do you play a cleric? They're asking two different questions to the player. So I don't mind these changes. The level progression changes for subclasses. I know that rubs people the wrong way. I do think this comes more as a gameplay solution in a game design, more mechanical game design approach than it does narrative. And it does suck because I will tell you, with the luchador, playing the luchador, or like designing it, I wanted the subclass to be at first level because you don the mask like it's your mask, it's your whole identity. It makes a lot of sense that your subclass will come at first level. Unfortunately, for balancing reasons, I had to push it to third because I needed all these other things to make you feel like you're a wrestler before I can actually give you an identity. And it was purely for mechanical reasons. And a lot of argument can be made that almost every class narratively should have their subclass at first level. But mechanically, for balance, you can't do that. The biggest example I want to say is like monk. For me, it never made narrative sense that the monk, prior to adventuring, has a philosophy behind their martial arts style, and that the martial arts style is a manifestation of that philosophy. That doesn't manifest in gameplay until third level. You would think at first level, your specific art fighting style and your philosophy and abilities will show up at first level, and they continue to grow as you level. Because despite the narrative, obviously monks are tied to real world martial arts, and every person in martial arts fights and thinks a different way. Depending on what martial arts they're using, there's just different moves and philosophies behind each martial art, and it's no different than a cleric who believes in a different god and a different set of rules and dogmas, etc. Yeah, see, and it's even saying the same thing. You're a fighter, pick a weapon, go bonk. You're a cleric, okay, there are over a dozen domains, each one with spells and features. You might change the playstyle entirely. Now they're kind of gearing you to, this is what the cleric identity is. If you want some way to change the playstyle, you can do that at level 2. And at third level, here's how you're manifesting your abilities. A lot of suggestions happening in regards to the core subclass structure all being unified, that they're going to reintroduce Strixhaven based subclasses, and a lot of people didn't like them. And part of it too is because the subclass structure, and we're currently with 5th edition, doesn't support that style of design. I thought it was a cool idea, but not balanced because of how subclasses come online at different levels. If they bring it back, this also clears up certain things and can bring us certain designs and subclasses without loading the books up with different variations of the same thing. For example, if you look at all the dragon-based subclasses, they're essentially all the same, just shuffled, remixed to do the same thing. There's some sort of charisma-based ability. There's a breath weapon, and you get the ability to fly. All of them. Every single one. So instead of shuffling when you get those features, they could just be like, okay, here is the dragon subclass. Boom. You can apply this to any class you want to play. If you want to play it and feel like a dragon, your play style is not changed by that. You're just going to have dragon features. And here is, but you're still a fighter, you're still a cleric, and you're still doing the role that you're doing. And as say they want to revisit places like Ravnica, they want to revisit Strixhaven, they can now implement subclasses based off of, for example, the guilds. And you not only will have, you'll feel like you're part of the guild and be empowered by that guild, but then you're still a wizard, you're still a cleric, you're still a fighter. So it's like, yeah, like there's potential, and that's why I know people get frustrated because it's like, man, how do you explain the narrative? People weren't having issues with the narrative for all the martial classes being structured this way. Fighters, the same thing, have that same narrative issue for me too. Is like, if I'm a powerful warrior, I most likely would have a specialized fighting style. Why would I be basic warrior pick up weapon hit thing for first 2 levels, and at 3rd level my fighting style manifests, and now I can show you I'm the awesome bowman that can do trick shots. I can channel. I can now channel giant energy and my giant ancestry into my weapon and activate these ruins. Right? Like, you would think, hey, my weapons are powered by giant ruins. I carve them into my weapon from level 1, and I'm trained to use that in battle. Makes a lot of sense at 1st level. Mechanically, you can't do that because the power budget, and they push to 3rd. Understandable. There's a lot of trade-off. All right. Yeah, see, and then Steven's bringing up the point. Narratively, issue is why I gave the Eldritch Knight a cantrip at 2nd level to lead into the settling magics, right? So, like, for me, I'm in favor of bringing subclasses up to level 1 instead of 3rd level, but there is a lot of issues in regards to game balance. Narratively, if we were to do narrative design, heavily focus on narrative design, you'd have your subclasses at 1st level, and it would have to determine your playstyle. But stuff like Eldritch Knight, you're a magic fighter that knows how to weave magic into their martial prowess, their martial abilities. Makes a lot of sense. That would be our 1st level. Right? But obviously, for balance reason, it has to be at 3rd level. Now we're seeing the pushback on that. Now instead, they're going to go everything at 3rd level. Okay. That does change the narrative, especially for stuff like Sorcerer and Warlock. So what is that necessarily going to mean for those later on when we see them at the end? But also, it could mean that they're going to change how subclasses are represented, especially when it comes to stuff like Wizard, right? Wizard has a ton of spell schools that for the new update, they're only going to come with 4. Wizard, unfortunately, has their subclass fantasy is all based off the kind of spells they study. I really hope they get rid of it, right? And they focus more on wizardly tropes. That'd be fun to see, especially if they're only going to put 4. So you might see a summoner wizard, an illusionist-based wizard, a war mage that focuses on blowing stuff up, stuff like that. 4 elements monks needs fix too. Oh yeah, all the monks need. The monk itself needs a fix to better support it. So in general, like 4 elements monk, you're going to see a massive rework of that one. It's supposed to be the Avatar monk, Avatar: The Last Airbender monk. That's where you're supposed to be, and it doesn't live up to the fantasy for most people. So you're going to see a change in how that one comes around. You're going to just see a general monk change. Yeah, I wonder if Wizard is going to have school specializations as an equivalent to Holy Orders. Maybe and I have a feeling that's probably going to be that too. And I'm wondering what the mage group is going to have as their shared feature. And I would laugh it's meta magic or something like that. Poor sorcerer, but yeah. All right, let's dive into life domain. Let's dive into this one. Okay, so again, we have the change in subclass features to 3. You get features at 3. You get features at 3rd level, 6th level, 10th level, 14th, like everybody else. Cool. Again, I'm indifferent about it. I do think there is a loss in narrative design this way, but in terms of mechanical design, it makes a lot of sense. It just makes sense. And everybody's like, oh, they're homogenizing, they make everybody the same. No, you're not losing that. In fact, the first 2 levels are going to form the playstyle of the class, while the subclass won't form the narrative or the flavor and help better support that playstyle. Which means there's room for new classes to be added into the game that, unfortunately, that have certain playstyles attached to them, and they're going to have a more defined role. And I think that was a problem with like Artificer. Nobody's really happy with Artificer design right now, and that's also what was the problem with trying to introduce the Mystic or the Scion currently, right? It doesn't have a niche in its role because a lot of that stuff is already covered by current 5th edition classes. So now if every class has a core role, a certain play style that is attached to it, well, cool. That means they can introduce other classes from D&D's past that have a certain fantasy attached to it and a certain play style that isn't presented in the game currently. Yeah. Yeah, Renan. And exactly. That's kind of the approach I had to take with the Luchador. Is like, yeah, you start off, and I want to say thank you to Daryl, aka Drunken Yoda, for that, because like I was really pushing for, I really wanted that subclass level 1, and it was not possible. But he said he did pitched it to me as like, well, what if they didn't? Exactly what you said. They're relatively green, unknown Luchador, and they it is until 3rd level where they find out their identity and find their shtick, and this is where they manifest themselves. They take on that identity. I wonder how they're going to explain why the sorcerer doesn't get their subclass at level 1. I think they're going to full X-Men it. I know I said this in one of the discords. I think it was in Indestructible Boys Discord. I said, oh, they're gonna X-Men it. They're at 3rd level, your bloodline manifests and awakens, and then you can tap into it. And the same thing with Warlock. Your patron shows themselves, and you're able to directly contact them and draw power to them. In general, what is this going to change for playstyles for the game? Okay, like in terms of like the meta sense, what are people going to probably do? What they already do. Experienced players already probably start their game around 3rd level, because since not all classes got their subclasses earlier, and people are building characters defined by that subclass, my playgroup does it, and we're more casual. Like we're way more casual. We've got a lot more casual players, but we've played long enough that they're just like, I like that subclass. I want to play that. I don't want to wait. You start off at 3rd level, while newer, inexperienced, and I think even casual players will start at level 1. So I think that's like the big thing that's really just going to happen. People that already play at 3rd level, there's no change to that. You're just still going to play at 3rd level. It's just making it easier for more casual players and newer players to get into the game to kind of learn how to play the character. Yet again, it's more of a mechanical approach to design. So sometimes it like the game of D&D shows itself at times in terms of their design, instead of the narrative the narrative approach to it. So okay, life domain. You get at 3rd level, you get domain spells. Okay, so you're going to get access to the spells don't count against the number of spells you can prepare, and they follow the rules of this class's spell casting feature. Okay, so from what I see, they just don't get access to certain spell list, right? Like divine, arcane, and primal sublist or spell list, and they're giving specific spells. Boom. Lesser restoration, prayer of healing, mass healing word, revivify or of life, death ward, greater restoration, or mass cure wounds. For comparison's sake, let's look at what they get here. Bless, cure wounds. Okay, so we don't get 3rd level spells anymore, right? For life domain, yeah. Instead, we're getting lesser restoration and prayer of healing. We no longer get spiritual weapon. Okay. Mass healing word, revivify. Nope, no, we get revivify still, but we no longer get beacon of hope. Okay. Aura of life, death ward. Death ward, we no longer get guardian of faith. Mass cure wounds and raise dead here. Mass cure wounds and greater restoration. So there are some changes and towards to what kind of features we're getting or spells for this. All right. For me, I'm bad at evaluating spells. I'm gonna be honest. It also because I just don't play a lot of spellcasters. I like spellcasting, but I'm a big proponent of martial or melee spellcaster, where I use spells to help me hit stuff more and harder. That's why I like spells like Booming Blade. Like just Booming Blade's like my go-to damage spell if I want to be a melee spellcaster. That's why Eldritch Knight probably would have been my favorite subclass in the game if it just was more streamlined in its design. That's why I'm looking forward to what they're going to do with it in the update because it's just a certain place that I enjoy playing. That and tanking. Disciple of Life. Your healing spells are empowered by life itself. When a spell you cast with spell slots restores hit points to a creature, that creature regains additional hit points on the turn you cast the spell. The additional hit points equal 2 plus the spell's level. Cool. Then Disciple of Life does not apply to your channeled divinity. Just so people are aware. Disciple of Life. Whenever you use a spell of first level or higher to restore hit points to a creature, the creature regains additional hit points to equal to 2 plus the spell's level. Okay. So yeah, it's the same. But it just any spell that with a spell slot instead of a first level spell or higher. So they're just changing the wording, but it's essentially the same. You have to use a spell slot to get additional healing. Yeah, no more Goodberry Trick. Is that why though was it because the way this was written is everybody would use Goodberry with this one? First level or higher to restore hit points to a creature. The creature regains additional hit points. Okay. And then the fact that it says restores hit points to a creature, that creature. Okay. When you cast a spell with a spell slot. Okay. That's the difference. Okay. Makes a lot more sense why it said so. So essentially the essence is the same, but the fact that the spell that's healing has to have a spell slot used and not create an item that restores means no more Goodberry BS. I am perfectly fine with this. I've never had anybody actually do that stupid combo in our game. Again, I don't think most of the people that play on my table are aware of that combo. And I certainly don't like playing characters that cheese like that. But people still do it. There's people still do it. There are certain content creators still advocate for this kind of style of play, and it's against the spirit of well, I'm not gonna say it's against the spirit of the game. That's wrong for me to say. It's just not all DMs have the knowledge of this or are equipped to deal with this or understand how to deal with it. Right? Not all tables can know what to do and how to either counter this kind of play or build encounters in a way that actually prevents it. It is definitely an exploit. So glad that they're patching it, to be honest. Yeah, like server barbs is there, and I think one person out of the whole time it's been out has actually chose it, and they rarely use it. Because either they forget or they want to use their reaction for something else. Or the character's not built to take advantage of it too. That's the other thing. I think I forgot who has it. It might be my buddy David. He might have it. No, never mind. He doesn't have it. He didn't take Silvery Barbs. But I think somebody did have it in a previous game. They were playing a bard. And they didn't use it because they built their bard to be more melee. So it was like they just were preferring to use shield or trying to get attacks of opportunity, stuff like that. Like they just prefer to do that. You can use your channel divinity at level 6. So this is preserve life. Excuse me. Just immediately jumping. 6th level, preserve life. You can use your channel divinity to heal a group of critically injured. As an action, you expend 1 use of your channel divinity and present your holy symbol, restoring a number of hit points equal to 5 times your cleric level. Choose any creature within 30 feet of yourself, including yourself, and divide those hit points among the chosen creatures. This feature can bring a creature's current hit points to no more than half of its hit point maximum. Only took silver bars for a Lucha one shot. See, yeah. And I think you used it once. That whole night, from what I remember, you used it once. All right, it's just keeping healing in the yo-yo range. Oh man, I've accidentally closed it. But yeah, we're seeing channel divinity being used here. Let me open back because I'm a dummy. Open this buddy back. Okay. Okay. So what we're seeing, right? The level 2 feature that is currently in the game for most subclasses is a channel divinity use, and that's getting pushed to 6th level. So say you are wanting to play, you're wanting to play like a Tempest Cleric, but using the loadout for a 1 D&D. Obviously, you would like remove the bonus proficiencies. You would play Wrath of the Storm and Thunder Strike at 3rd level, and then your channel divinity would go at 6th level. From what is kind of looking in comparison to the life domain, your Disciple of Life and Bless Healer, right? Oh no, hold on. Oh, never mind. No, your expanded spell list and your Disciple of Life stay there at 1st, and then this gets moved to 6th. Okay, excuse me. Disciple of Life and expanded spell list go to 3rd. This goes to 6th. And then Bless Healer, which is what we're gonna get, goes to 10th. So you're shifting everything down and removing any proficiency additions that you would get. Okay. So Bless Healer, healing spells you cast on others. You heal when you cast a spell with a spell slot on another creature that restores 2 points. Right. When you cast a spell at 1st level or higher that restores hit points to a creature other than you, you regain hit points equal to 2 plus the spells. Okay. So you just get to regain hit points. And again, the way this is worded, you're not handing out good berries and getting healed for it. Right? So again, shifted and rewritten to prevent cheese. Okay, we no longer get Blessed Strike, Divine Strike here, because we got that in the class. And then at 14th level, Supreme Healing. The old one is, starting at 17th level, when you normally would roll 1 or more dice to restore hit points with a spell, you instead use the highest number possible for each die. Okay? Now, the new one, when you normally would roll 1 or more dice to restore hit points to a creature with a spell that you cast with a spell slot, you don't roll those dice for the healing. Instead, you use the highest number possible for each die. Same thing, but again, rewritten to prevent cheese. Cool. So there isn't much change outside of where you're getting the features. And they're just rewritten in a way for this so that it doesn't evoke good berry cheese, right? Other than that, rebalanced, repositioned, you still are the healer cleric. None of these features interact with your other channel divinity. So doesn't interact with where's this boy at? Doesn't interact with Divine Spark where you can heal. Okay. But you still get an alternate channel divinity use at 6th level, and which would have been at 2nd level. So everything gets shifted down. Can't really complain. I personally just don't care for the life cleric at all. But it really its value is going to depend on how damage is going to be dealt to player characters in the game. Because right now with 5th edition, just trying to evaluate it based off this alone, healing word, whether it does an additional HP or not, when you're just trying to get somebody back up from the ground, is like, it doesn't mean anything. As soon as you heal, like, healing 1 hit point is the same as healing 10 when you do the yo-yo situation. Healing isn't as strong currently, so if monsters are going to be a lot more deadlier and players are not going to deal as much damage relatively to what 5th edition allows with certain like feats, then okay, life cleric is going to be a lot stronger, and then healing is going to be a lot more important. But if they're not really changing much of that, life cleric's going to be where it always has been. Yeah, it's a really good healer, but but healing only matters depending on how deadly your game is, and that'll be table dependent. Not mad at it though. It's very clear to see how you can take a current subclass and fit it into another class. But also with the channel divinity restriction, because I saw some talk like, say you're doing Strix classes and you can take like certain things, unless all the other classes in priest have channel divinity and you can just kind of slot everything there. I'm wondering, like you can't slot like a spell progression or a subclass progression into another class that's outside of like the priest, if channel divinity is the core unifying mechanic for that group. All right. Overall, I think outside, because Steven changed my mind, outside of the changes to like Holy Order at 9th, I like in general, I like what we're seeing with the cleric. You're as a player, mechanically, you're getting that definition of like, okay, this is what the cleric is supposed to play. This is the play style of the cleric. This is how I'm going to feel like a cleric. We're getting that a lot more, very similar to like fighter and monk and barbarian and paladin and ranger and all the other classes that got the 3rd level subclass. You're getting a lot more of that up front, and now we know what we're supposed to be. I really love Holy Order. I want them to expand it, add more options to here as the game goes on, and to add different ways to play certain fantasies. But 9th level, getting an additional one at this level, Steven convinced me, Rules and Rulings convinced me that they probably should just be like expansions on the ones you've already picked, so that they have a little bit more impact later on, instead of just being able to pick another one, because not all of them are created equal. But then again, like, it really depends on the playstyle you are trying to do. I can see now, because I missed this, you regain expended use of channel divinity when you finish a short rest. Depending on how impactful the rest of the channel divinities will be for the classes, that might not be a bad option later, just to get an additional use of it. Yeah. So we'll see. All right. Now let's get into okay, I want to get into character species in a second. But yeah, it's just last thing in regards to subclasses. I know people are just really down at this simplified progression, but it just makes me, for me, like, I'm very, again, indifferent. Narrative design is there, like, narrative design makes sense currently for 5th edition. But in terms of mechanical and looking at what they want to do, I'm leaning towards this newer design because there's a lot more potential what they can do with subclasses and subclass design, and what they can do for class design and adding new classes to the game, or also for homebrewers to add classes to the game. that fill certain niches in fantasies. And it's a lot more simple to do that. Everybody knows now you're going to be getting 2 subclass features at 3rd level, and then 1 at 6th, 10th, and 14th. And then you just filter the rest of your class progression out. Like, boom, 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 boom. You got it. So, and depending on how certain groups play with each other, will also inform like how certain subclass and feature design is going to be too. Yeah, settles on new class groups. Yeah, gonna be interesting. Gonna be interesting, or try to create new class groups and stuff like that for certain design. But I think how broad warrior, priest, mage is, most things are gonna like fit into warrior, priest, mage, expert. Like how broad they are, most concepts and class concepts are gonna fit within one of those 4. Right. Commoners, psychics, pacifists, like depends on how they want to define psychics, right? Where pretty much where is psychic's power source coming from? And for me, being that this is a fantasy based game, psychics fit in mage. In all honesty, it makes a lot of sense too that all of a sudden there might be a 4th class for each group coming. Experts get artificer, right? Mages gets psychics or scion or mystic, whatever the hell they want to call it, and then you add 2 more to priest and warrior. You 1 for each, fitting certain niches. Makes a lot of sense. Because there's still fantasies that are not being fulfilled in the game, because based on subclasses, just based on class structures. Like one of the ones that I don't think isn't properly fulfilled without multi-classing, or the narrative is off, is like a Dark Knight kind of character, a heavily armored warrior that uses pretty much dark powers, pretty much your Death Knights, your Hell Knights, etc. But that also still fights good. That pretty much that anti-hero sort of character. You see, like in Final Fantasy 14 online, they have the Dark Knight class, and it has that. It's that you're using you're wielding dark power to help your martial prowess, and you keep channeling it, even though if it hurts you to do that. Like that's why I think the Blood Hunter is so appealing, because that it follows that narrative, but does it from a Witcher Ranger standpoint. There's room for that sort of like dark powered warrior fantasy to be fulfilled that I think isn't being done well with 5th edition right now. Paladins seem more warrior than priest. I agree. Paladins seem more warrior than priest. I agree. But we'll see what they plan on doing with Paladin, if they're going to lean it back into a religious faith-based fantasy, which I kind of hope they don't. I like the fact that the Paladins are a champion of a cause and are empowered by how their faith in in that cause, and how much they believe that cause, and how much they want to fight for that cause, because that doesn't need a god for it. You can do a bunch of other things. They're more of a champion of causes, which is cool. And it separates them narratively from a cleric, especially a war priest. It separates them from that fantasy, and more of like, yeah, I'm like the stuff like Oath of the Crown. You have faith and belief, and are empowered by the laws and rules and culture of your kingdom, right? Warrior will take Terran's Juggernaut. Oh heck yeah, well I'm down. Vanguard, but stuff like Warden, right? Some sort of like nature-based tank, nature-based warrior that's more martial. I can see that kind of filling in a niche somewhere, but also I see that fitting into like a fighter subclass or maybe even like a druid subclass. I want them to swap smite and lay on hands mechanics. I'm gonna laugh that both of those get put into channel divinity. All right. Okay, let's jump into these race changes. So Ardling, where it's back, and no surprise, I called this when it happened. I came around to Ardling and really seeing the potential of what this is. They're supposed to be the answer to the celestial answer to the tiefling, but they're taking a lot of inspiration from non-European fantasy tropes and stories, where a lot of like Japanese culture, even Aztec Mayan culture, and you see it in ancient Egyptian, etc. Their gods or celestial beings have animal heads, human bodies, animal heads, and so there was a lot of ties to divine. Unfortunately, this did not resonate 100% with the player base. I figured this wasn't because here's the thing: players see an option that allows you to portray an animal. They're going to want to have animal-like traits. It's just what it is. I don't know. I'll necessarily agree with that, but it's what it is, and that's what happened. So now they did just that. They're giving animal-like traits. You still have a divine quality, but you're still going to have animal traits. Unfortunately, the furries won this fight. The furries won, and it sucks. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But no, like it just makes a lot of sense. There's it just didn't resonate, and it is because it is very much different from the European-based fantasy that the game is built on. Despite them having a much bigger effort of trying to include and be inclusive and wanting to include different fantasies from around the world, from inspired by different cultures, and which I applaud them for trying. Like they're this, like we saw this with Radiant Citadel, and them including other cultures and stuff. And Ardling is another step in that direction of trying to include and represent peoples in a way in the game that that is still sort of like still encouraging for people not associated or tied to those cultures to try out. Yeah, a player base is hella white. That has an inevitable effect on resonance for some concept. Yeah, and the thing is, it just wasn't going to resonate with the greater audience. So the majority. So it is what it is. It's we're gonna give and take for this, because you could still play that sort of a celestial being because you still got divine magic ties, but you want to play an animal. Your baseline, boom, you're gonna have access to it. So Ardlings, you can be small or medium, right? They have a movement of 30 feet. I'm pretty sure that's standard now for all races. 200 years on average, so they have a longer life. They have an animal ancestry, so no longer are you tied to specific realms, lawful or good realms. Now you're tied to an animal ancestry. So, climber. Examples that give you a bear, cat, lizard, or squirrel. You have hooked claws, sharp nails, or serpentine tail. As a result, you have a climb speed equal to your speed, and once per turn, when you deal damage with your unarmed strike to a target, you increase the damage to that target by... Excuse me. You increase that damage with your unarmed strike to a target. You can increase that damage to that target by an amount equal to your proficiency bonus. Okay. Yeah, Hedgehog is missing. We'll get to Racer. Like, you could have just snuck that in there, man. Seriously. Okay, Flyer. Bat, Eagle, Owl, Raven. You have vestigial wings. As a result, when you fall at least 10 feet, you can use your reaction to safely glide downward, taking no damage from the fall. In addition, when you take the jump action, you can flap your wings to gain advantage on the action's ability check. Interesting. That's pretty cool. this is one of those that if you're going to be a very mobile character, it's going to like come up a lot. But it's probably one of the ones that if this is the final option, players will probably overlook because like, oh, I punch like climber, I'm gonna get to climb and then I get to punch stuff harder. I'm gonna be monk. Like that's climbers there. Racer, deer, dog, horse, triceratops, hedgehog. You could have just snuck it. You could have just snuck hedgehog right there. See, there's a space. Also, I'm weirded out by triceratops being a racer. I don't know if like triceratops are known for being like super fast. I'm not up to date on my dinosaur knowledge. I would have thought velociraptor would have fit right there. That too. Velociraptor are pretty quick, so they could have put cheetah, etc. Like deer, dog, horse, triceratops, cheetah, hedgehog. Like, even if they would have put hedgehog with a little asterisk right here, that would have been like, no, they're not really that fast. But you got to go fast, right? When you take the dash action, your speed increases for that action. The increase equals to 10 times your proficiency bonus. You're zooming. You're zooming like you're going like woo. You're going. What's going on, flutes? Like yeah, like you're. That's a lot. Especially okay, like eraser. Like I would ask my DM if I can play eraser, hedgehog, rogue, or racer, hedgehog. Oh yeah, just so I can do dash action as a bonus action, so I don't have to use key on a monk. But yeah, man, like the heck, that's a lot of speed. That's a lot of distance to cover. Running speed is very underappreciated. Like traveling distance is very underappreciated in the game. It's one of like the monk's strengths that they can travel for long distances. But yeah, it's just one of the things. Like this is gonna be really, really good for some situations, right? Yeah, being able to just this also helps the jump issue that or not the jump issue. Like my one of my buddies in our play group, he plays a lot of monks and he likes to jump and dash and stuff around. We weren't using the jump rules exactly how they were. There were for a long time we didn't understand that there was a limit to the how far somebody can jump, and that was limited by your total actual movement speed that you have on your sheet. So we were just like triple, double, triple, etc. And just like, yeah, you can jump this far. But now this is a racer. Now he will be able to make a turtle that can, or not a turtle, but he can make a freaking super fast monk. And then expedition, retreat, haste, stuff like that. Yeah. Oh god. Swimmer, crocodile, dolphin, frog, shark. You can hold your breath for up to an hour at a time, and you can have a swim speed equal to your speed. In addition, you have resistance to cold damage. This is interesting. Guarantee this is going to be something for a very, very specific campaign. Unless you really want to be a street shark, like swimmer is definitely for your nautical aquatic campaigns. Yeah. In all honesty, you can play a penguin. Oh, that reminds me of that. Is it Mega Man X1? The like one of the first bosses. Like you can. That's pretty easy to take out. Is the penguin? With swimmer, June. But yeah, I think like from a new player standpoint, like just trying to see like what they would pick. Climber is probably gonna be the one that people pick up the most, just because I can like you deal more damage as an unarmed strike. The one that I think is probably going to get slept on a lot is Flyer. Because most people, unfortunately, don't try to move in 3D space when they think about moving on their character. The one that I think is probably stupid good is Racer. Like it's meme worthy. Like this is super memey. But like the fact that you can just like dash action and just haul ass, because it's equal to 10 times your proficiency bonus. So you get this at level 1. It's 2, so that is 20 additional feet on top of like your movement. So with a dash action, right? You already move 30, and then you move an additional 30, and then you're putting another 20 on top of that, right? When you take the dash action, your speed increases for that action. The increase equals, if I'm reading this right, the increase equals, okay, yeah, I am reading that right. So yeah, because you move double your movement, and then you're adding the proficiency bonus. So that's for one single turn, that's 80 feet. Yeah. And see, and that this is the one I'm thinking it is the best one. Like you're getting around places. And especially you're gonna get classes like the rogue or the monk that can use dash as a bonus action. Right? So anyway, you also get divine magic. You innately channel minor divine magic. You know the thaumaturgy spell. When we finish a long rest, you can replace that spell with a different level, pretty much a different cantrip from the divine spell list. Intelligence, wisdom, or charisma, your spellcasting ability for when you cast a trait. Pretty cool. Still get you that divine magic ties, and you can also change that cantrip to have different, so you can do different utility, and then also but change it every long rest, which allows flexibility. Cool. Very, very straightforward. You can tie it to whatever class you're playing. Not bad. Most likely, I would always suggest if you're a martial, take a, or actually any class, just take a utility spell with this one, so it always has use. But the good thing is you're no longer locked in at all. Like you start off with thaumaturgy, but you can change it. And then keen senses, you have proficiency in the perception skill. I can't complain. It just makes a lot of sense why they're going this route with it. With more of an animal ancestry brand, I'm pretty sure this one's going to get a pass with majority of people on this. It also, I will say, it does differentiate it a lot more besides aesthetics from the ASMR, but I don't feel the Aardling now is a direct opposite of Tiefling, which is also, yeah. I do not feel that they are no longer the counter to the Tiefling. I very much think they're going to just listen to the player base and make ASMR the direct counter to the Tiefling. Which, cool, but that means ASMR probably should be in the player's handbook. If they're going to do that. Yeah, symmetry is nice, but not necessary. And I agree with that. I agree with that too. But you'd be surprised at like how many people just like really enjoy the idea of either playing an angel or a devil. Like I actually get a lot more surprised by that, and especially from people that aren't necessarily religious. Dragonborn, the ancestor, Dragonborn got changed because generally people were not happy with it, and I can, in all honesty, it's because a lot of people really enjoyed the Fizzbats Dragonborns. So this is supposed to be a universal Dragonborn that isn't tied to the Fizzbands one. But from my understanding, the Fizzbands Dragonborn are still work with One DND. Again, the lack of clarity for what it means, what backwards compatibility means for this so far is still murky. Part of it too, I really believe it entirely has to do with the fact that this is not finalized. That they can't say this XYZ things are backwards compatible. ABC is no longer compatible with One D&D, right? I think it's just because they're still trying to figure that out themselves, with the goal to have things backwards compatible versus um versus just straight out telling us. I'm putting a lot of goodwill towards Wizards in regards to this. I know some of my content creator friends don't feel this way, but at the same time, they're very, very down on Wizards for what they feel, and rightfully, like I don't blame them for feeling this way. That they're being very deceitful because they see this as a brand new edition. And then a lot of the changes do feel like a new edition, but the core of the game is still based off of the core of the action economy of D&D, like a 5th edition. And it's just the classes are getting updated with updates many have been asking for, mind you. A lot of people have been asking for these challenge changes and balance changes to the classes and stuff. But the classes themselves are going to interact with that action economy a bit differently. Or not hardly different, like slight differences. So, okay. Dragonborn, what changed with them? Okay, your lineage stems from a dragon progenitor. Choose the kind of dragon from the draconic ancestor table. Your choice affects your breath weapon and damage resistant traits, as well as the look of your draconic flight. The chosen dragon also affects your appearance, with you displaying coloration and other features reminiscent of that dragon. Excuse me. So, the big difference I'm already noticing in terms of like lore and identity of your draconic ancestry. Yes, within the setting, you're going to have different, like you're going to have chromatic versus metallic, or your chromatic, your evil. From a very broad standpoint, they're not implying that here. If you're looking at this now, yes, you may have an ancestry that ties you to chromatic dragons, but you're not necessarily evil. You just have that coloration, making it very broad so that depending on homebrew settings and pretty much any fantasy setting, there's no implications that you're going to have your alignment is going to be tied to good or evil, and it's vice versa for metallics. So if you want to play like I just want to be a blue dragon, it doesn't necessarily mean you're evil, or you even have ties to Tiamat and all that stuff. Any implications of that sort, that's going to be more imposed on the world you're playing in, and the homebrew or not, and that can be completely ignored, which I like. I enjoy that because before playing D&D, I didn't know that there was a distinct difference in the lore, and now you can kind of, and it, for more casual players, it's like, oh, I just want to be red dragon. I just want to breathe fire and not have that lore implication on there. Breath weapon. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of your attacks with exhalation of magical energy in either a 50-foot cone or a 30-foot line that is 5 foot wide. Each creature in that area must make a dexterity saving throw against a DC equal to 8, plus your constitution modifier, plus your proficiency bonus. Okay. On a failed save, a creature takes 1d10 damage of that type determined by your draconic ancestry trait. On a successful save, a creature takes half as much damage. This increases the 1d10 when you reach by 1d10, when you reach the following levels: 2d10, 3d10, 4d10. You can use this breath weapon a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Fizzbando, let's go look. How identical is this in terms of damage scaling? It is identical. Weren't these weaker? I want to make the assumption that these were weaker in the previous update for Dragonborn. Weren't they like D8s or something like that? Or D6s? I don't remember. I don't remember them being D10s. So they're just bringing it up to par with Fizzbands and making them feel powerful. It's a breath weapon that you can now interchange it with your attack. I don't think people were too. There was criticisms for it, criticisms against it. I like having it interchangeable between your attack, so that as a marshal, you don't have to choose between I want to do a breath weapon and attack. You can just be like, with extra attack, I'm going to hit them and then set it up and, breathe my breath weapon on them. No problem for me. I want to say they did make it a lot. They now have it similar to the Fizzbands ones. I don't remember if they were not going by the D10 scaling. Damage resistance. You have a resistance to the damage type determined by your Draconic Ancestry trait. It was D10 plus level? Okay. Oh, instead of cantrip scaling. Oh, interesting. So it was just flat, like a D10 plus flat damage. Interesting. And no, yeah, I remember there was no attack swap out. So they went to the Fizzbands route. Interesting. So it's a lot. Your damage potential is a lot higher. Okay, I don't. Yeah, your damage potential is a lot higher now. So yeah. A/B testing cantrip scaling with extra attack synergy or a +1 level damage for full action. Yeah, I have a feeling this one's just gonna play better. Honestly, I think not play better, but I mean, it's just gonna be received better by the community. It's something they're familiar with. The damage scaling is a lot higher. It's taking something that they already do with another option presented, so it doesn't feel different, and they don't feel lesser for it. All right, Dark Vision. Dragonborn, I believe, currently in 5th edition, don't have Dark Vision. Now they get it. Not mad at that, but dark. It's actually a lot rarer to find a player option that doesn't have Dark Vision. So just pointed out there. Draconic Flight. When you reach 5th level, you learn how to channel the magical energies of your Draconic ancestry to give yourself temporary flight. As a bonus action, you sprout spectral wings on your back that last for 10 minutes or until you're incapacitated, or you retract the wings as a bonus action. During that time, you have a flight speed equal to your speed. Your wings appear to be made of energy used by your breath weapon. Sick. Yeah, Gem Dragon has flight also. The chromatic and the metallic don't. This one lasts for a minute. This will last for 10 minutes. Off the offset, like comparing them to the Fizzbands ones, there's pros and cons to both of these. I think for a generic Dragonborn, out the book, this is a lot better than what we've gotten comparing it to the Player's Handbook version. Just straight up, later on you get 10 minutes worth of flight, meaning it's applicable outside of combat. So you can play different roles with it. You're going to do scouting, etc. But also, if you're going to be using it in combat, your fighters and other melee centered characters, barbarians, etc., are not tied to the ground. They can actually now, if think in 3D space, and go attack the flying thing and hit it really hard. All for it. Don't mind this. The breath weapon, iconic, very, very straightforward. I think this will pass the smell test just because it's something very familiar and has a higher threshold for damage, making it feel similar for others. But it is a viable option, especially looking at the Fizzban's Dragonborn, where it's really going to be dependent on what you're wanting to play. So, like chromatic warding on the chromatic Dragonborn, pretty much just makes you immune for a damage type for a minute, right? Depending on where your ancestry is. Metallic has the option of like 2 different breath weapons, which is pretty sick. So it depends on what kind of build you're going to be wanting for this, because Metallic is very geared towards melee combat. And the breath weapons, you got Fusroda, and then you have the incapacitated one. They can just kind of shut down everybody within a cone for a turn. Yeah, but Gem Dragonborns have probably the best damage types, because these damage types are the quote-unquote rare energy types that are not commonly resisted or protected against or dealt. So it's just... So, Gem, here we go. And then they get the flight, but their flight is lesser than this new base Dragonborn so far. But they do have the ability to... mentally speak with other people, so they have some built-in utility also. In comparison, it's another flavor of ice cream in the plethora of Dragonborn ice cream. So it really depends on the kind of build you're wanting to do. Like if I'm going for a more melee centered build, I probably would still take Metallic Dragonborn and lose out on flight from this one. But that's if I'm really centered on being in the fight on the ground type of melee fighter. But that's with the build in mind of wanting to use the breath weapon. But playing this newer Dragonborn as is out of the box, this one looks pretty good. Like, there's no real complaints. I actually like this one better. Not any more busted than the Fizzban's options, but attack, swapping, and cantrip scaling is probably an overtune on all of them. Yeah. The overtuneness, I just think the damage swap, or not the damage swapping, but the attack swapping and the cantrip scaling, this addresses the feel-good issue that people have had with Dragonborn. Well, yes, it is a lot stronger now that you can switch options, and it really mainly benefits marshals because of the extra attack feature. But part of the problem with the breath weapon is that as you were level, it became weaker and weaker and just didn't feel iconically powerful, especially if all your class options are a lot more powerful and they get powerful. Why wouldn't your breath weapon get more powerful as you level also? So that's why it addresses that issue that people were having with it. But it probably is, quote unquote, it might be just too strong, but at the same time, it's already here. People are going to be upset if, by just looking at it, the numbers just don't look the same. So I can see why they would go this, and why this will probably get the pass, despite it probably being too strong for people. Yeah, like this makes me excited to play like a base Dragonborn. Just seeing the options there, it's like, okay, cool. I can interchange my text with the breath weapon. The breath weapon won't suck. And then I'll be able to fly for 10 minutes, like out of combat, to kind of do out of combat stuff with the flight. And then in combat, like if I'm playing a barbarian, the flying thing cannot run away from me. I'm going to go get it. That sounds like fun. All right, Goliath. This is the new one. Interesting that this is getting included. I'm wondering... Some people are saying this might be in Big B's, the Big B's Book of Giants coming out. That's why this one got snuck in here, which is a possibility. It might not even be in One DND. If it is in One DND's update, man, like, while it's cool, I really would have loved to see goblins on here as a part of like the core race options. but it is what it is, you know. So Goliaths, now they're gonna have a giant ancestry. So mind you, Goliaths were already updated once in Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse. So now they're getting another update, possibly for One DND, but maybe for Big B's giant book. Who knows? Like they could easily sneak this one in there too, in preparation for One DND. So you get to choose a giant ancestry, and the benefit equals to a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. And you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So depending on what kind of giant you want to be, if you're from Cloud Giants, has a bonus action, you magically teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Dang, that's what we just bonus action basic step. Cool. Fire Giant. When you hit a target with an attack roll and deal damage to it, you can also deal 1d10 fire damage to that target. Okay, straightforward. Frost Giant. When you hit a target with an attack roll, you can deal damage to it. You can also deal 1d6 and deal damage to it. Excuse me. You can also deal an additional d6 cold damage to that target and reduce the speed by 10 feet. Okay. Not bad. Tanky ability right here, reducing the speed of a creature. Now, Steven says Hill's Tumble is beastly. Okay. When you hit a large or smaller creature with an attack roll and deal damage to it, you can knock that target prone. Yeah, that okay. That is so good. Okay, that's good. Okay. Getting the chance to give advantage on your attacks to your allies and yourself, and to knock the creature prone and pretty much cut their movement in half, is a bigger tanking tool than. Oh, it's okay. Not even a tanking tool. It's a bigger control tool because, mind you, this attack roll applies to cantrip damage. So, it applies to spell attacks that require an attack roll. Right? Okay. This is a bigger control ability than Frost Chill. While Frost Chill deals additional damage, the damage is probably negligible, maybe an additional 2 damage on your dice roll on average. And the 10 feet is cool. Just knocking somebody on their ass, cutting their movement in half, and depending on who's on the turn order, getting advantage on every attack. And say happens on your first attack. Your second attack, boom, it has that advantage. Hill Goliath, Warlock, Lance, and Lethargy. Yeah, like this is. Well, yes and no. Okay. Yeah, the first attack on your Eldritch Blast hits, and you have Lance and Lethargy, and you knock it prone. Boom, they're on their ass and not getting up. The follow-up attacks are going to be at disadvantage because they're on the floor. This probably needs a save. I'm going to be honest. It's strong. Like it's really, really strong. But it does. I would say it probably needs a save. But it's good. Even with the save, it's good because it's just a much better control tool. On top of like, if you're a spellcaster, on top of your basic cantrip spells or your first level attack. Like, say you're a hill giant, you got Hill's Tumble, and you firebolt. You're a wizard. You activate it on the last one. That's evil. You can do that, right? Yeah, you can do that. I think that's the play where you're gonna do Warlock. You just activate it on the last one, so you can get all your damage in, and set it up for everybody else. As a marshal, this gives you an incredible amount of control. It makes you a better tank, and it's super strong with ranged spell attacks, or even just range attacks in general. Like that's just dumb. Like you're a Goliath Ranger. Like, bleh. Yeah. This dwarfs anything, like it dwarfs everything compared like so far. I think Cloud the Misty Step or Cloud Giant is also really strong, but in term and has more utility. This is probably the strongest combat option out of the 4 so far. Just because of all the nice little combos you can do with that. Yeah. It probably needs a save. I will say it probably needs a save for it. When you take damage, so this is Stone Giant, Stone's Endurance. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to roll a d12, add your Constitution modifier for the number rolled, and reduce the damage by that total. I believe that is similar to what they currently have with in Magic Monsters of the Multiverse. Okay, it's just a damage prevention tool. Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. I think it's just what it is, though. It's the one that they already got currently. And Storm's Thunder, Storm Giant, when you take damage from the creature within 60 feet of you, you can use your reaction to deal 1d8 thunder damage to that creature. Yeah. Unfortunately, like the two that immediately stand out that'll probably get the most use. You're going to be combat oriented and you're going to have a combat driven game. Hills Tumble. It's just good. It does everything that the others want to do, but better. Especially with all the combo features that you can just add on top of it. And then you get or you want a little bit more utility and be able to be more mobile. Okay, Cloud Giant's John is good. Yeah, free Misty Step is always going to be good. That's why elves, every elven option, they have a variation of Misty Step, and that's why people always rate it really, really solid. Bonus action, you move 30 feet anywhere in 3D space. Boom. And the thing is, Cloud's Jaunt is applicable outside of combat. So that's what the free Misty Step for me got going for it. That you can use it anywhere in combat, out of combat. It's just solid. Hills Tumble is combat oriented only, but it dwarfs all these others in comparison because of the implication of what prone can do, and there's no save, and then there's more potential for damage and disruption and control. Yeah, none of these options are bad. They're just not leveled. Yeah, they're not all equal. You got two options that are just really shine, and then you have other options that are flavorful, but they just don't like they just don't have that oomph, that wow factor to them. They need something extra. Yeah. The Storm's Thunder, Storm Giant thing is kind of like the it's taken from the Tempest Cleric. Whenever you take damage, you can reflect damage back to them. It's kind of like what I remember, like a Boros Reckoner effect, where you take damage, you're reflecting or like Hellish Rebuke and stuff like that. It's just kind of what those features are. It's cool, but it doesn't do more. It needs more damage. You get range on it to deal damage, but you're just not it doesn't have the power presence that Hills Tumble has, or the utility that Teleport has. And the same thing with Fire's Burn. Doesn't have the same utility or power, despite it just adding additional damage. And Frost Chill would have been good, would have been really, really solid. But in comparison to Hills Tumble, it just has more level of control. And Stone Endurance is just solid. Like it preventing damage is fine. It's just, again, Hills Tumble does more to do the same thing that some of these options want to do. So yeah, add a save onto this, and yeah, add a save on the Hills Tumble. I think it needs it. Like it's good, but yeah, I think it need even with the save, it's still good. All right, large form. Starting at 5th, you gain the ability to supernaturally grow. As a bonus action, you change your size to large, provided you're in a big enough space. This transformation lasts for 10 minutes or until you end it as a bonus action. During that duration, you have advantage on strength checks, and your speed increases by 10 feet. Once you use this trait, you can use it again until you finish a long rest. I get big. Add a save or at least make it a melee attack roll. Well, that's true. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to limit it. I think before we go back to large form, I think with Hill's Tumble, they're trying to make it so that it's not tied to a specific class. It's more applicable to any role you're playing, any class you're playing, which I'm fine with. But yeah, either a save or make it limited to once per turn. There needs to be a limit on this because like this is kind of strong. It just dwarfs every other option because they just the level of control you're allowed to get off of this. Okay. All right. So large form, pretty straightforward. You can change your size to large provided you're in a big enough space. So mind you, this isn't enlarge reduce. You're just growing in size, not as a spell. So you can stack this with enlarge reduce. Right? So it lasts for 10 minutes. It ends as a bonus action or ended as a bonus action. During that duration, you have advantage on strength checks and your speed increases by 10 feet. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish long rest. So it's a one-time 10-minute. I'm Apache Chief. I get really huge. Don't hate it. And it stacks. Like that's the thing. You put enlarge on there on somebody. They're huge. But now we're through night. Yeah. Yeah, because Rune Knight does the same, right? Rune Knight just makes you grow too large. So yeah, it doesn't stack with Rune Knight, which is unfortunate. So you're not. It's a non-bow. But any other class where you get enlarge or somebody you can combo off with enlarge, you can just get bigger. Not bad. And then powerful build, you have an advantage on any saving throw you make to end the grappled condition on yourself. You also count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity and the weight you push, drag, or lift. Okay, that's cool because grappled condition and being grappled is different. It is no longer a strength check. It is now a unarmed strike attack. So you're going to see some changes. That's not bad, but going to be very, very rare on how it happens. I'm liking this Goliath, but definitely Hill's Tumble and Cloud's John are like the two that are just better. Hill's Tumble is too strong in comparison to the other options. We do need another limit onto this to, I think, to make it feel equal or buff these other ones. Yeah, and then large form is non-bow with Rude Knight. Unfortunately, but it does combo with enlarge reduce, so you can enlarge and go to huge size. So yeah, Goliath, just with some balance changes. I think this is a very, very fun spot. It is the giant answer to it's not even a giant answer to the dragons because dragons don't get this level of options. But it's definitely cool. This makes me more excited to play Goliath. Like if this was like in any of the books that's coming out, boom, I want to play Goliath. And I think what gets me more excited, is this as somebody who really enjoys playing melee tanky characters, giving me the option to have more battlefield presence and control by just attacking and doing things like an ancestral guardian barbarian Goliath with this on there. like with Hills Tumble is good, even if there's a save involved, is really, really good. And then you add in stuff like Crusher and everything like that, and just manipulate the battlefield and prevent people from doing things. Goliath Monk, yeah. Goliath Monk, a flurry of blows, and you have multiple creatures in front of you. At 5th level, that's 5 attacks? Or like, well, no. Yeah, no. It's 4 attacks. Yeah, they did lose their cold resistance. Yeah. But how often is cold damage going to be popping up, you know? It is a more common damage type, but fire and poison tend to be the two that happen a lot in most adventures. But are you willing to give up cold damage that any of your attacks knock a creature prone? Yeah. So yeah. I'm not going to get into feats or spells. Fortunately, I'm looking at the time right now. I do need to take a little bit of a break and stuff. But yeah, just based off of to kind of wrap this up, regards to cleric and the changes here. In general, I enjoy these. The changes to the cleric, I think it does a lot stronger job of informing a player what exactly it means to be a cleric. What's the fantasy behind the cleric? Even if it's at the loss of narrative that we currently have in getting the subclass at 1st level, now moving that to 3rd level. I think it does a better job of introing players to the idea of cleric. I'm seeing that's going to be the case for all the classes coming into 1 D&D that they're implementing with this subclass structuring. The first 2 levels are training wheels to get you to understand the fantasy behind the class, and the 3rd level is when it starts. This is more of a mechanical design thing to make sure people understand how the game is played, which, again, experienced players most likely are not playing at 1st level to begin with, unless they're playing a written adventure from Wizards. Other than that, even at my table with a casual group, since we've been playing so long, most of us, we just start at level 3 so that everybody has a subclass going. And even then, we've been trying to get and started playing at 5th level because that's when we feel like that's the good spot. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm honestly, as I more think about it and sit through it, I'm okay and I'm in favor of this subclass changes to being 3rd level. For me though, the game aspect of D&D pops out out here. And even though I feel like I'm more of an advocate for flavor and narrative and driven into your games. A lot of like stuff I see and geared towards like the game aspect, and I normally like veer away from it. But I really like the fact that they are considering the casual and new player experience and making it easier for people to get into the game and learn the game, and the implications that the subclass is changing to 3rd level and starting at 3rd level means for potential subclasses coming down the line, updates to current subclasses, but also potential classes for this system, so that each class does have a stronger identity and role, so that they can introduce new classes in the game that have a stronger identity and role, so they feel different. Because you're seeing like cleric was very, very broad on what it was able to do. Currently, they play multiple roles based off their domain. While flavor wise, it makes a lot of sense, but at the same time, sometimes that flavor does not match the setting that you're playing in. You want to play for example, a light domain, a fire-based cleric, but the light domain is a blaster. But my god is Hephaestus. He uses fire and flame to create, while everybody's like, just play Forge. Or I'm like, yeah, but I want to play fire. There's more dealing with fire and wielding fire and radiant damage as a melee character. Well, this newer cleric allows you to do that. So that's why, like, I've seen Boone. There's a loss in narrative in some aspects, but you're gaining a lot more control and choice and options to play the character you want, and have this character be applied and the domains applied in a way that is a lot gives players a lot more choice and freedom. So, yeah, Holy Order is probably like my favorite thing to come out of all of this. Just continue to add more. I think there is going to be a concern, and it's really going to be dependent on how they deal with multi-classing, if they address it at all directly, because there is going to be cause to worry for abilities that have uses based off of proficiency bonus per long rest. Because that all those abilities scale narratively, I think it does make sense. Like as you continue to level, even if you're not leveling into the class, since you're repeatedly using these abilities, you're going to get stronger and with these features. So I think there is some that, and it really just depends on how strong the proficiency bonus per long rest abilities are going to be, how potent they are, and if they're going to be worth the level 1 or 2 dip that you're going to get them at. So yeah, that's the one thing I think in terms of multi-classing stuff and balance we're going to need to be concerned with. And if they directly address multi-classing, they've already hinted at that potentially. In an earlier video that Jeremy Crawford did talk with Todd Kenrick on. It's one of the, I think the second or third UA videos that they did. But they just hinted at it. But I don't think we're going to see anything until later to make Absurd viable. Yeah, we'll see. Other than that, Ardling changes, understandable. It didn't originate, or excuse me, it didn't resonate with players originally because they see an animal option and want to play an animal character or have animal traits. So there's still some ties to divine magic, but now we're getting that. Now the Aardling is going to be more of an animal-inspired character. Cool. Dragonborn feel a lot better. I don't see people really... I don't see the majority of people looking at this and thinking, okay, this is bad. It's something that they're used to seeing, especially with Fizzbands. It probably is a lot stronger than it should be, but since it is similar, people are probably going to be like, yes, I'm going to take that option. Draconic Flight, I think, is the thing that makes this stand out in comparison to the Fizzbands options, because its flight is a lot longer than the Gem Dragonborn. It has applications outside of combat, which is great. So your characters are going to be is allowed to do other things that others can't. Cool. Goliath, I don't know what book this is going to come out in, One DND or Bigby's, but they do need Hill's Tumble is the rock star here, with Cloud Giant not too far behind it. Either they need to buff the other options or nerf this one a little bit. Other than that, One DND. Not everybody's gonna like what's going on. Some people are just highly resistant to change, period, and they're already upset that this is what's happening, homogenizing the classes, etc., etc. As always, provide feedback. It's okay to be critical in the discussions, but being toxic or positive or negative toxicity, just being toxic, doesn't help promote conversation. Everybody has an opportunity to give feedback and really make the game that they want to play. And at the end of this, after 1DD, whatever happens and they finalize, if this isn't the game for you, that's okay too. Regular like 5th edition before 1DD is still going to be there. Like 3.5, 4th edition, Pathfinder are always there. Nobody is ever telling you to play. You have to play D&D. Find what is fun, whether it currently is or isn't fun for you and your table. But right now you have nothing to set in stone. Everybody has an opportunity to inform themselves. But be respectful of other people. Provide feedback and talk and discuss and figure out what you think is going to work for you. But do it in a productive manner that is not positively or negatively toxic. Because yeah, like this is exciting. Like nobody should be getting this upset over D&D, or also be defenders of Wizards. Wizards has made a lot of mistakes, like, and they rightfully should be criticized for those mistakes. But it does have to be done in a constructive manner so that conversations can happen and can be done. So I'm seeing a lot of like just discussions, just not healthy discussions in regards to the game in a variety of places, and it is super frustrating because it makes me not want to interact with the D&D community, and it makes me not want to do content at times because it's like I don't want to hear or deal with it. And that's not something I want. I really love this game. I enjoy it. I see there's a lot of potential in what One D&D is bringing. I'm enjoying a lot of changes that's coming. I think people forget and just get upset that changes are happening for change's sake and not realizing much of the stuff they're introducing that I'm seeing is direct complaints from other influencers, Reddit posters, people on Twitter, everything have been wanting for the game for a very, very long time. And these changes are happening. It might not be exactly how you want them to be, but the changes are these are changes that are coming. And they're introducing them slowly, bringing them out. So, Wizards, as you've seen in the most recent video, that they are addressing it. They're being upfront after putting applaud to influencers like Treant Monk. Applaud him for that. The video and the letter he sent out, to applying a little bit of pressure on them to be a little bit more clear and direct about the design philosophy and the design approach that they're taking with it. So now we got a video with this most recent update addressing that, so that we understand what the heck is going on, so that we can better inform them about what exactly they're presenting us. At the same time, buddy Indestructible Boy also regarding OGL and also being critical and wanting the same level of clarity, so we know what the heck is going on, so we can provide better feedback. But in both of those cases, while they were both critical, they were still not toxic about that discussion. And that's the one thing to keep in mind. Yeah, and Demon Remover, people think something is bad, at least let them know how you would change it. Yeah, provide a solution instead of just saying, this sucks, I don't like it. Well, that doesn't help them. Explain why you don't like it, what the potential causes if you understand what it is. But yeah, there's a lot better ways we can go to talk about this. So yeah, a lot of changes coming. And I'm super excited for whatever's changing, whatever's happening. I'm super excited to see what they're going to do with Warriors, because they've already hinted at a weapon system to give marshals, warrior classes, more options in combat. So if the Battlemaster Fighter subclass has to die so that warriors can run and use maneuvers, let it happen. I'm okay with this. I'm okay with it if it gives them a certain scaling and abilities to have them be impactful like spellcasters, so that we can stop hearing the argument of spellcaster versus pretty much wizard versus mage, wizard versus fighter divide. That spellcasters are always going to be more powerful and can do a lot more things. I'm tired of hearing about it. We understand, like, it's a problem, but let them address it. Let them figure it out. It's hard to hear this. People keep harping on it over and over again. It's like, you guys aren't, to a certain point, like, you're not saying anything new, and they're very aware of it. So yeah, excited. I want to see, as a pretty much a martial main, I'm super excited to see what they're going to do with spellcasters. All right. Other than that, I don't know when my next live stream will be. Hopefully soon. Holidays are coming up, so give it what it is. I'm still going to be covering the Lunar Sorcerer. It just came out. I'm a little slow on it. I finished the script. I need to do some recording, editing, and stuff. So expect that hopefully by this week to be out. I'll be the last person to talk about it ever. But yeah, Lunar Sorcerer is interesting. There's a lot of again, unhappiness with the subclass too that's going around. Gonna stream your wedding, right? When's that? Oh no, I'm not streaming my wedding, buddy. No, my wedding isn't until February next year. So there's gonna be that too. I know for a month or so, I might go dark for a bit, or just I need queue up some content for you guys while I'm gone. But yeah, thank you guys for showing up. This is a very exciting time for D&D. But even amongst all this assignment, everybody has a lot of strong feelings. All I can just say is be respectful of everybody, but also respect yourself when conducting and interacting and providing criticism for this, because it's very obvious Wizards wants to hear our opinions. It's just not all of us are equipped to explain ourselves in a way that is productive, and it does take some time. And since it just be patient with yourself and with others as we try to figure out what exactly we're going to do for this new part of the game. And also just remember, it is a game. It's not that serious. It's okay. Everything's gonna be fine. And if at the end of the day this isn't the game you want to play, it is perfectly fine. And there are other games out there that'll make you a lot happier too. And I would say go out there and play them. All right, until next time, guys, you guys have a good one, and peace. I'll see you guys next time.